Okay.
Yeah. Hi, we'll just wait for a couple of more minutes for some more people to join. Okay. So we'll start, doctor. So I think people will
Yeah,
join in as and when. So we have Dr. Hari here with us. Dr. Hari has been a SBEBA practitioner for the past 8 years from 2016. And so for people who don't know what really SBEBA is, SBEBA is a treatment methodology, diagnostic methodology, which was developed by two doctors, Dr. Rajkumar and Dr. Ramya. So they have put in maybe I think decades of research into this to and then to like contemporize Ayurveda and not follow the same methodologies, and the way they treat is also very different. I myself I'm undergoing treatment with Dr. Rajkumar. So so I came to know about SBEBA. So Dr. Hari is a SPEBA practitioner for the past 8 years, and he has written a book on scientific pathya in Ayurveda, which I believe tells practitioners, gives an insight into practice for practitioners to prescribe the proper pathya for the diseases. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um, so that is a very basic introduction. And just how this talk came about is there was an earlier video um, with Dr. Anshul and Dr. Hari as well about millets, and whether they are like whether they are a good source of food, or what as it is being proclaimed right now. So there was a good talk about millets, and I had watched the video, and so I had contacted Dr. Hari with some questions like post the video, and so that's when this talk was born. Like where Dr. Hari said he wanted to talk more about the questions himself. So that's where we are now. And what this talk will be about and what it will not be about is this is not going to talk about any pathya for any specific diseases, any lifestyle diseases. If we are looking for any specific pathya, we are not looking to go into that. We're going to be talking about the modern day myths in our eating habits, and modern day myths with reference to the foods that we take and also the habits that we have inculcated. So that is what this talk is going to be about. Um, so yeah, shall we? I think that is the basic introduction that so we'll start the questions that I had, and so anybody has any questions, I think they can post the questions in the chat, and if they're relevant, like we'll try and pick up the ones which are relevant. I have a set of questions, like, and the doctor has also seen the questions, so we'll go through them. And if anybody has any more follow-up questions, you can post it on the chat. We'll take it up based on the time and the relevance. Yeah. Um, so we are going to be starting with the same question that we had in the millets talk. So the question
yeah.
is, what would be a balanced diet for a healthy individual? So, one second. Doc. So the thing is, this is very important. From what we see today is there is so much information overload. Like you have to eat this for being healthy, and there's so much information overload, and we see even people who are active, generally active, even people who are young, trying out a lot of variety of things. This is basically a fear of eating right, fear of eating healthy. So there is a fear that has crept into all of us. So we'll start with a basic question, like if you feel that you're a reasonably healthy individual, what should a balanced diet be? And what are the bare minimum things that should be included for a healthy person's diet?
Okay, so it is very important question today. I would like to highlight some points which are very necessary to be included when I talk about balanced diet as per Ayurveda. So it is not about having certain ingredients that are must in the diet to be called as balanced diet. It is more about understanding the body and accordingly planning the diet because each individual is different. So the three things are very important when we talk about balanced diet. One is Hita book, Mita book, and Kala book. So what is this Hita book? It is wholesome diet. So wholesome to me may be different from wholesome to the other person. So
Yes.
the so that is also very important. So uncontrolled intake has been it is going on in today's world. Next one is Kala book. Time, what time we have to take, and understanding the time factor is also important. So these three things are must. When you understand these things and you practice also, this wholesome and unwholesome is influenced by many factors. The activities we do, that is called kriya, then phenotype that we have, that prakriti, so that also influences desha, the region where we live, or the place where we live, and also the kala, the time factor, pathological factors, so doshas, the various pathological factors, and these things, uh, these are so when we talk about wholesome and unwholesome, these things also come into factor. And another important factor is the balanced diet is not based on the nutritional values. Like in the modern Western science, we talk about so much of proteins to be taken, so much of vitamins, and these are to be included. That it is not like that in which is explained in Ayurveda. So basically, it is not so. So it is not the nutritional values that are important. The nutrition, when we talk about nutrition, it is the basic metabolic need of the tissues that we are going to satisfy. That is much more important. So when we say that the tissues are to be satisfied, it is there is one important point that the food which we take has so many functional entities, which is called as functional properties, or we call it as gunas, and they become our bodily components. How do they become bodily components? It is because of parinamataha. Aharasya gunaha sharira bhava gunamapadyante. So what is that parinamataha means? It is dependent whole and solely on the transformation, the digestion and absorption, etc. This is the very crucial point. So depending on the metabolic need of the person and the transformation capacity to digest and metabolic power, certain guidelines are given in Ayurveda. Those guidelines are mandatory to be understood in a normal scenario. I'm talking about in a normal scenario. Let us see what are those. Kale satmyam shuchi hitam snigdoshnam lagu tanmanaha shadrasam madaraprayo na atidruta vilambitam. So this is the statement which is given in Ayurveda. Kale. So when we take food, the first factor which is told is Kale. That is the time factor. So there are some things which are told before you take food. These are mandatory to be observed. These are called as this is called Annakala. Annakala Lakshanam. So when to take food? That's very important. So you need to understand certain things. Sista Vinmutra Vatanam. Sharirasya cha laghavam. So before you go to take food, so you have to assess whether you have passed the bowel. The bowel movement is very clear, and the flatulence is passed, and also the micturition is properly initiated, or these things are properly passed. So Sharirasya cha laghavam is the lightness of the body. So understanding one's body is very important. So the lightness of the body, then Udgara Shuddhi, there should be a clear belching. So we should not have the belching of the food which is left over or previous day food, the taste of a previous meal. That should be complete bodily activity, walking or anything which we finish. There should be a clarity in thoughts also. So Vaivalyam Hridayasya cha. So there should be a clarity of thought, and mind should also be in a good position. Then the Kukti Saitilyam. So that is also another important point, that there should be a lightness in the abdomen. So these are certain things that we need to. This is called as Annakala Lakshanam. So these are certain things that we must observe before taking the food. So this is the time factor which he is talking about. So Kale Satyam. Then habituation is also important. Apart from the time, so habituation. So when the South Indians are habituated to different kinds of things. North Indians are habituated to different things, and depending on, even in Ayurveda it is told, then like Kandamula, Paladinum, Malay in Malaya Pradeshas, they are habituated to the root vegetables, etc. Similarly, from place to place, the habituation differs. So that is also habituation. It also needs to be taken into consideration. Again, habituation also has different rules. So it is to be understood that the habituation based on the place uh, it is inferior to the habituation based on the time. So time factor, the habituation depending on the season is much more important. And when habituation based on the phenotypic understanding, so one's own prakriti, one's constitution, that is more important than the habituation depending on the seasons. And habituation based on the pathological factors, the dosha satmya is more important than the habituation related to the prakriti. And when somebody is suffering from a disease, the habituation vyadhi satmya, so the habituation particular to that particular disease is more important than other things. So habituation is also to be considered, taken into consideration, but these are the things to be understood. So kale satmyam shuchi, it should be clean, the food should be clean, and hitam, wholesome it should be. So again, wholesome, lot of indications and contraindications. Then very important point is, in Ayurveda, it is not based on, I've already told you, it is not based on any nutritional values, ions, mineral, or micro minerals, etc. They are not divided based on that, but it is based on the tastes. So, Shadrasa is the concept that we have, six tastes. So, out of this, the food should be having all the six tastes, but predominance of swadu, or sweet in taste. So it does not mean that we have to include the sweets which are made out of sugar or something. It is not like that. The cereals which we take predominantly, it is basically of the sweet taste in predominance. For example, the goduma, or the wheat which we take, it is also swadu predominance. The rice, the red rice, or different traditional rice which are grown in India, they are all sweet taste predominance. So this is the staple food that we have been following, and that should be, in a normal scenario, the main food. That apart from that, it should be having the other tastes also, like sour taste and astringent, the salt and katu, this spices, etc. But in very minimal and in combination. So all these things to be taken in combination. So we take pulses and we prepare dishes, and we add fat, that like oil or ghee which we add, along with this salt is added, and all these combinations we generally take. So this is the combination which is ideal, but it should be predominant, the cereals, the carbohydrate predominant food with that we take. It is never a wrong. It is told very clearly in Ayurveda. So lagu and tanmana, another point is, it should be easily digestible, both quantity wise as always, quality wise. So quality wise, heavy for digestion. There are many food articles which are said, explained in Ayurveda. based on their properties, which are heavy for digestion. So certain things are to be avoided on a daily basis. So it should be lagu, easily digestible, both quantity and quality wise. And Shadrasam Madra Prayo, I have explained you, six combination of six tastes and with predominance of swadu or sweet taste. And na ati druta vilambitam, that is, it should neither be taken in hurry or too fast or too slow. So this is a general guidance which is explained, which are explained in Ayurveda, and it's in a normal scenario. And when you talk about this guideline, we should also talk about certain things which are to be avoided on a daily basis. So only then it completes the definition or completes the explanation of balanced diet. So we shall see what are those things which are to be avoided, mandatory to be avoided on a daily basis. So ekarasa satmyam. So that is, we should not be accustomed to the single taste predominance. Like today, have the habit of replacing the meal with the different kinds of snacks, etc. So we are taking biscuits and we are replacing the meal. It is wrong. Again, we are habituated to one single taste, and we are replacing fruits. We are taking fruits and replacing the meal. Again, it is wrong. It is only satisfying one kinds of rasa, so our tissues metabolic needs will not be fulfilled. So anything which is replacing the meal, so basically we are getting accustomed to one type of taste or one or two types of taste, it is again wrong. Then guru and Shushka bhojanam, that is heavy digestion. We are taking heavy meal or taking the food articles which are heavy in nature, which are heavy for digestion. And ruksha, which is devoid of unctuous or oil or ghee, which is very important for facilitating the digestion as well as for peristaltic movements and all the movements which are happening in the GI tracts. So this is also important. So devoid of such things can also affect. Again, this is on the normal scenario. Depending on pathological factors, there are changes. We are talking on the normal scenario. So these are the things. Then it is also told katvamlam kashaya lavanotkatam. So uh, predominance of kashaya or astringent taste or the sour taste or the salt. So we have today people are taking processed foods and replacing the meal. Fermented foods, again predominant food articles. So these are never to be taken. So is very clearly tejet. It says very clearly that it has to be avoided very clearly. Apart from that, again, I would like to add few more things. Atyabhishandi, the food which are higher hypersecretory, which induces hypersecretory nature and adhesive nature in the circulation. There are many such food articles which are explained in Ayurveda, like curd, urad dal, and fish, certain things, and also the fermented foods, which produces sour taste. These are all to be avoided on, which are considered as abhishanti, which produces the hypersecretory effects in the circulation as well as increases the adhesive nature. So it can lead to various metabolic diseases as well as the obstructive diseases, etc. So then Vistambi aharas. Vistambi aharas are again which can produce hyperflatulence and can produce distension of the abdomen, can affect the peristaltic movement of the GIT. So such food articles, for example, chana or dry things which are devoid of oil or the beaten rice, etc. Things which are or the sprouts, etc. Things they are all coming under, and also the black tea, black coffee. These are all Vistambis basically. Vistambis are which can also stimulate the retrograde flow of the flatulence. So these are all. This is considered under the shelter called Vistambi, that is to be avoided, and Vidahi Aharas. Vidahi Aharas again they produce the burning sensations or erectations. So such food articles are called as Vidahi Aharas, which krichena pakamupaiti, which with very difficulty which it undergoes digestion. So when they undergo digestion, they produce burning sensation and so erectations, etc. Today, many are habituated to such vidahi aharas. Like people are using pickles and bread. most of the fermented food articles, etc., paneer, etc. items. So again, these are to be clearly avoided. Then kshara. Kshara is told to be avoided. So alkali food articles. So this sodium carbonate, bicarbonate, people are using this sodas, and alkaline water is also very much now people are talking about. So again, this is very clearly told to be avoided. Then pishta aharas, batter based, so which is generally heavy for digestion. So especially the people of South India are today there is a trend of having all the three meals. They are all the three times they are taking this batter based dosa, idlis, etc. Again, they are heavy from apart from fermented. They are very heavy for digestion. So it is not properly boiled and cooked. So when we observe the process, so this pistaharas, so again they are heavy for digestion. Again, viruda kanna is the sprouted. Today there is a trend like protein. Sprouted grains are believed to be a biggest source of the proteins, and people have the habit of taking it and on daily basis, replacing the meal. They are taking salads and sprouted things, replacing the meal. Again, there is a clear cut contraindication, which is explained in Ayurveda. Samastam Nashilayet. These are to be straight outrightly, these are to be rejected and should be avoided in a main course of the diet. So when we inculcate or when we practice all this, when we adjust, we would say that we can call this as a balanced diet, which is explained in Ayurveda. So certain things are to be avoided, and what are the things to be avoided, mandatory to be there in our diet, that we have to understand. Apart from these guidelines, there are other guidelines like minor guidelines which are explain how to take food, how to and also the good status of mind is very important. When sometimes even after following all this, even the patyahara is taken, the wholesome food is taken, still sometimes the food may not be digested. That is because of status of mind is also very important. So status of mind is also to be taken into consideration. All these things together we can call it as a balanced diet as per Ayurveda. So it is not based on, never based on the nutritional value, how much carbohydrate, calculating it based on the body weight, etc. It is never that. In between, there is a very crucial point that is called as parinamataha. I told you what is that transformation. So digestion factor. So one should understand his digestion capacity, and keeping all these things, so he can understand what is hita to him, what is wholesome to him, and this wholesome can keep his internal environment, so his own internal environment in balance. Also, if there are any corrections to be made in the alterations of internal environment, that would be done by following the balanced diet, which is explained in Ayurveda. This is hita for that particular person. So it varies from person to person, but these are the general guidelines.
Uh, yeah. So to summarize, for a healthy individual, for a regular balanced diet, you mentioned shadrasa, like six tastes, like all the tastes should be there,
Yes,
and it should
yes,
be of sweet taste predominantly,
yes,
a
yes,
wheat or rice, and then you should have pulses, oil. It should be unctuous, like there should be oil or ghee. And there should be salt and spices in minimum.
yes.
So yeah, so this should suffice. Like, so if you have this for a regular, I mean, like a healthy individual, for a healthy individual, if he
Yes.
has these, it should suffice. So, but the things that you mentioned, the things that one should not have. So you mentioned curd, urad dal, chana, or even paneer or sprouts. So is it that one should not have these at all? Like, or is it that for a healthy individual, like reasonably healthy, I mean, one feels healthy and one is active, so they can have it. Like only if you are having some pathology, you should not be having these, or is it that we should not be having these at all? Like the ones that you mentioned.
No, this is when somebody is suffering from a disease. When we in SBEBA we have a concept of scientific nutrition schedule. So most of the things are avoided till the recovery happens, or based on that, for stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 are designed. So that is a different thing. But these are to be avoided, which I told, Atyabhishandi, Vistambi, and Vidahi, etc., are to be avoided generally on a daily basis. On a
Okay.
daily basis, these are to be avoided, because we should not get habituated to any of these food articles which are explained. So it is not that we cannot have it for lifetime or once in a lifetime. It is not like that. But it should never be habituated. Our body tissues are to be habituated, not to be habituated with these kinds of food articles. Um the things which are told, snigdosnam, maduram prayo shadrasam, these are to be habituated, because that is the innate nature of our tissues. That is the basic metabolic need that our tissues have. So that is how the nature is built. So that is what is explained in Ayurveda, to be taken on a daily basis. Okay. So the things which are told not to be taken, which are to be avoided on a daily basis. That's all the thing. And again, so these contraindications and indication depends if he is suffering from any pathology disease, pathological aspects, or he is the what kind of diseases he has suffered in the past. All these things should be taken into consideration. That's what I told. Designing hita and ahita, it's again tailor made. It varies
Wonderful.
from person to person, but on a regular basis, when you asked what is the balanced diet that we have in Ayurveda, what are the guidelines that we have, these are the things that we need to keep in mind in a normal scenario when we are designing a diet.
Oh, okay, so a follow-up question is, who's a healthy individual? Like, how do I know, or how will anyone know that okay, I'm healthy, I'm not suffering from any path? Like, what are all the things that I can observe or one can observe? Like generally, like there are a lot of things that I mean, basic things like I'm active. If I'm active throughout the day, then something. So these are things that I can think of. But what are what are the things that I can observe or one can observe to know that okay, I'm healthy? Is there?
Yeah, there are guidelines which are explained. Arogya lingas are explained in Ayurveda, the signs and symptoms of a healthy person. But in today's era, it's very, very difficult, because we are now trying to be away from all these chemicals and all sort of things and immune suppressions. But if you analyze people, 99 out of 100, all are habituated. Either they are in one or other immune suppressions. They are habituated to wrong food articles and so many things. So it's very difficult to design now today to understand the healthy person who is healthy. It's determining who is a healthy person. It's a very, very tough job. But there are symptoms. When you asked what are the things which are helpful to assess that one person is healthy, we can discuss certain things which are explained in Ayurveda. So on a daily basis, how to understand that he is a healthy, that is annabhilashu. So he should be having a desire for food, first thing. So in most of the pathological status, people don't observe their hunger only. So it is just gulping, just go and having based on the time and etc. So one should be observant, very clearly observing his hunger. So there will be a clear cut abhilasha, that is a desire for food. That is the first thing. So there can be a very clear desire. So it is not the greediness. So we should be differentiating it properly. That greediness towards a food is different from abhilasha. So abhilasha is a natural desire for a food. So anna abhilashu bhuktasya paripaka sukhenacha is whatever the food that has been taken, it should be properly digested. In the last question also, I have highlighted this point. There is a greater importance to the digestion part. So bhuktasya paripakah sukhena cha. So very clearly it should be digested. Food should be clearly digested. I have told you what are the signs to be understood before taking the next meal. So those things are also helpful to understand whether the food has been digested or not. So like clear belching and all those things. So again, the same parameter to be used. Then Sista Vinmutra Vatanam. So there should be a clear passage of urine, the micturition reflex, and bowel movement should be clear. And bowel movement also, the feces should be floating and it should not be sticking to the commode. So this is so we clearly indication it indicates that the food has been properly digested, and there are no indigested food articles. So this is another factor. Next, sharirasya chalagavam, the lightness of the body. So one should have that lightness of the body. So maybe after doing exercises in the empty stomach, or when we when he wakes up in the morning, having that lightness in the body. Then suprasanna indriyam. So suprasanna indriyam is like, it should be a very clarity in all the indriyas. So whether it is a motor or say sensory organs, it should be properly functioning. There should be a proper coordination. Then uh, he should be waking up in the morning without any hindrance or without any difficulty. Also, he should be going into the bed and he should immediately get into a proper sleep without any difficulty. Today, most of the people are suffering from they are not observing this, and many people do not know the importance of these two things. These two things are also very crucial to understand whether the person is healthy or not. So should be waking up without any hindrance or without any difficulty, and also should go to the bed and should get the proper sleep without any difficulty. So these are another two things that are to be understood. Then balavarna sukha ayusham labha. So you should be getting the strength. You should not feel the fatigue, or and complexion should be good. Okay, so then another thing is saumanasyam, so clarity of mind and also a good status, psychological state should be good. Then these are the things that are generally told, which are explained in Ayurveda, Vidyat Arogya Lingani. So they are told that these are the symptoms of a healthy person. So the signs and symptoms of a healthy person. So these are general guidelines we can understand that the internal environment is on the safer side. Generally, when person is suffering from disease, any disease, so any of these things will be missing, or maybe all, or any one of these things are missing. So we should understand these are basic things which say that the digestion, transformation, metabolism, all are on a safer side or on a proper side.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was like self-explanatory. And next we'll go into some of the specifics and we'll look at some of the modern myths that are there.
Yes.
Um, Let us start with the most important one, water.
Yes.
Uh, okay, so there are lots of articles on saying how much water should be consumed in a day. Like there are even bottles that are being sold which tell you like 3 liter bottles, 5 liter bottles that are being sold, and then there are there are apps which tell you that you should have at this point in time. So that the n number of things. So, is there really one such golden number? Like, okay, this amount of water has to be consumed. And the other important question I felt is this is the other important question is during. I mean, like, when should we consume it? Like, should it be? This is with reference to a meal. Like, should it be before we have the meal, or during the meal, or after the meal? So that is the second one is more specific with reference to a meal, but the first one is how much should be consumed? Like, is there some number?
There is no number. We cannot specify the need of water in terms of liter or ml or anything. Definitely, there is no number. So we should be very clear about this. Many people say that you have to take so much of water, 5 liters of water, everything. This is it's a grave mistake. So we cannot specify the number. What kind of water is? I think it comes first. Then how much water to be taken. We shouldn't be in a preoccupation that there should be more amount of water to be taken frequently. That is definitely to be avoided. Water should be taken whenever we feel thirsty, and especially when we are on medicines or when we are on treatment. Sometimes we may need to we should observe the dehydration symptoms also. If you are having any dehydration symptoms, then we need to be alert and we should be taking adequate amount of water. So that adequate amount of water, how much it should be taken, depends again on the person to person. Phenotype also plays a very crucial role. So it is not that all kinds of people will have the same demand for water. Definitely no. So it depends again from person to person, season to season. Again, Varsha, when this rainy season, etc., people don't feel that thirsty. Again, whenever they feel thirsty, they have to consume water. This is the answer for the first question. So definitely the number cannot be specified, the quantity cannot be specified. Second thing, what kind of water? That needs lot of clarity because today people are going behind arrow water, again reverse osmosis. Again there are reports saying that it is wrong, it is also not good for the health, etc. Now there is a trend of alkaline water and all those things. But when we see in Ayurveda, there are some kinds of water which are told, and there are some contraindications also. I would like to throw some light on few of the important things. Then I will come back to your second question. So,
Yeah.
in relation to food, when we take extra excess water, so number of diseases are explained in Ayurveda having by consuming excess of water. So that itself is clear that excess of water should never be taken, never be consumed. So number of diseases are explained right from prameya, etc. So related with there can be many diseases which are related with by which can result by taking excess of water. So that itself makes it gives a clarity that we shouldn't take excess water. Second, what kind of water? There is a caution. There is one very important, even I have highlighted this in the book. Anavastita doshagne vyadi kshina balascha na alpamapi amamudukam taddi tridoshakrat. This one statement which is given, I will explain it what it is. Ama udakam is unboiled water. He says, anavastita doshagnehe, in unstabilized immune status, unstabilized pathology, or when the person is in the pathological state, an unstable or an hormonal imbalance, when the person is under in the hormonal imbalance, etc. Conditions, even a small drop of unboiled water can immediately enhance the pathology, or it can even result in much more stronger pathology. So that itself gives an idea that this unboiled water is not at all suitable to be taken, especially in the pathological state. It is never taken, or if the person is having susceptible nature to develop a disease. There are people, because of the resistance shown by our immune system, he may not be in the pathological state, but he may be prone to develop pathological state. So if person is also having such person is surviving in such state, even then this the unboiled water can immediately make him land up in the diseases. So there is so much of importance to this unboiled water. So this type of water should also not be consumed, unboiled water, especially when he is in the pathological state. Various pathological, I have practically seen this. Even a small drop of unboiled water can immediately con exacerbation of the disease can happen immediately. So this is one thing that we should be keeping in mind. Then people also there are some which is good, which is reduced. Some if it is reduced in and how much to boil is also very important. People do not know. You might have seen in hotels, etc. In many places, people just boil the water and give it. That is not how. That is also called as unboiled, or that is also called as ama udakam in Ayurveda. So till when it is to be taken? Jala agni samyoge api afena parikshayat. So it is very clear the bubbles should be disappearing. So when we are boiling the water, the bubble should be completely disappearing. So till then, it is called as unboiled only. So it should be the bubble should be disappeared after boiling it. So when we boil the water, it boils in 100 degrees Celsius. So all the bubbles appear and it should be disappearing. Only then we consider it as a kvatita jalam, or a boiled water. Such water is to be taken if the pathology demands, or if if your doctor says it is to be taken, scientific practitioner of Ayurveda says to be taken in the hot water itself, then depending on the pathology, it is to be taken hot itself. Or in a normal scenario, the Shuta Sheetha Jala is also advised. The boiled and cooled water can also be taken. So that would be more ideal because it is easy for digestion. Uh, So these are different things. And there is one more concept of medicated water that is called Aushadha Jalam. So in main number of pathological factors, it is introduced by SBEBA, which is also documented in the Samhitas of Ayurveda. It is called Aushadha Jalam. So that is also told to be taken in many conditions. So that is that is very important in the status of low immune status and etc. So it is directly indicated in that way. So these are different kinds of the water that we need to follow. But we should be aware of what I have told you, the unboiled water that can lead to very serious complications or enhancement of the pathology. So that is to be kept in mind. Another thing is in relation to the food, which I have told you. Generally, there is a popular saying in Ayurveda: "Ajirne beshajam vari, bhojanante vishapradam." So at the end of the food, if you take water, it is said as it acts like a poison. But the same water, it is taken ajirne beshajam vari. When it is taken in indigestion, it acts like a beshaja. So it is not the water which is important. A facade way of taking water is important. It is when to take water, what kind of water is most important. So generally not ideal to be taken before food. So it can lead to number of GI diseases. Some of the diseases it is said as a causative factor, like diseases like gulma, etc. In Ayurveda, it is told as a uh, uh, causative factor. So before food, on when the person is having good hunger, water should never be taken. And after food also, it can interfere in the with the digestion. So it is ideal to be taken along with the food. There is a general rule that when we divide the capacity of stomach into four parts, the two parts should be taken, should be filled with the solid food which we have already talked about, and one part to be filled with the water, and the one part should be left free. So ideal to be taken along with the food and whenever the person is thirsty. So that is the general guideline. And should observe if he is developing any dehydration symptoms, etc. He has to increase the amount of that should equate the quantity of water for the person. So this is how it is to be understood. Certain things are to be avoided, like unboiled water, etc. And medicating with the wrong herbs also to be avoided. So the herbs, how to medicate the Ausajadalam, which I talked, medicated water, it is to be decided by a scientific practitioner of Ayurveda only. People are taking making the medicated water with the wrong herbs, like tulsi. I have seen people in during the COVID, etc. Tulsi, they are just boiling with tulsi and they are boiling with this pepper, and they are taking. They are developing so many the complications like bleeding piles and so many things they develop, and finally the blame comes to the science and herbs. It is not like that basically. So the herbs, how to medicate, what to be medicated with the water, etc., to be designed by a scientific practitioner for Ayurveda after assessing the person, assessing his condition, etc. So it is also not a general guideline. So nobody can take it for granted. So this is the herb to be taken for daily, etc. Again, alkaline water also I have already told. When it comes to the balanced diet, I have told one important point: ksharam. It should not be taken. So it can also decrease the immune status and the innate strength of a person. So alkaline water also should be avoided, and all sort of unboiled water should be avoided. And many people have this habit of taking this sugar and the salt mixed with water. They think that they are suffering from dehydration and so many things whenever they feel weak, especially when they are suffering from inflammations, when they are going through infections. It is generally they will be having that weakness and fatigue. They think that this is because of dehydration. They'll be taking some sugar and salt water. That can also escalate the pathological status. So it should be kept in mind. No such unscientific medications or medicated water to be practiced. Whole and soul. Uh, if nothing can be taken, better thing is cool, boiled and cooled water. If he is going through certain pathologies, better to be taken boiled water, and avoid unboiled water and all sort of other medicated waters. So medicated water to be decided by a scientific practitioner of Ayurveda. Yes.
Mm. Okay. Um, yeah, so there's one question there, like from one of the participants, like typically we take a lot of water in the mornings, like before our breakfast, we'll take like excess quantities of water. Is that advisable, or that is again contraindicative and it's to do the
Yeah, that's
thirst
what
and
I told. When we are having good hunger, we shouldn't be taking water. Like along with the food, it is fine to be taken, not after immediately after the food. Should be avoided. So taking when person is having good hunger and taking water can so it should be avoided very clearly. And there are different trends like after waking up, they should be taking some 2 liters of water,
yeah.
1 liters of water. Unnecessarily, all these things should be avoided. All these things should be avoided. Should listen to body. If he is thirsty, he can take water and he should observe for any is developing any dehydration symptoms. He should be very clearly understanding it and he should be deciding what is the adequate quantity of water to that particular person.
Okay. Some of the things that you mentioned we
And
also
there is one
follow,
more.
so we should
There is one
take.
more point. There is one more point I forgot. There is one more which is explained is Parishita Jalam. That is like previous day water. That is also it can escalate the pathological status immediately. So we should be avoiding it very clearly. We should never be heating again, reheating the water which is prepared in the previous day and taking it in the next day. That should be clearly avoided. It is applied even to the food also. Food also. Sheetha Mushni Kritam, it is clearly told in Ayurveda. So the previous day food we are keeping it in the fridge and we are again reheating it in the next day and using. Certain things are to be avoided, thoroughly to be avoided. It is also indicated for water also. So Parishutam Jalam, it can also immediately escalate the pathological status.
Okay. So let's move on to the next one. The other important thing, which is milk.
Yes.
So yeah. So there again, we have lots of articles this that saying Indians ourselves are lactose intolerant. Like we are 70% or 90% of Indians are lactose intolerant. So that is one that keeps coming up. And so there are a lot of alternatives also that are mentioned: soy milk, almond milk, and now there are alternatives for curd as well, peanut curd, things like that. So are we really lactose intolerant? And like, can cow milk be termed as good or bad? Like, are we really lactose intolerant? And third is these alternatives. Um, if if for some reason we're not able to digest milk or something, are these alternatives safe? Are these alternatives like safe or healthy, or are they safe?
There are multiple things to be understood. Actually, I'm not in favor of this debate that Indians are lactose intolerant, etc. Lactose intolerance is a condition, it's a pathological condition where lactose sugar should be hydrolyzed to the glucose and galactose, which are the absorbable forms. So, there is an enzyme called lactase, which is there in the breast border cells of the small intestine, which helps in this hydrolyzation hydrolyzing the lactose into the glucose and galactose. So finally, this is to be observed. What happens is that this lactase becomes deficient or it is absent. So it leads to lactose intolerance. That is how it is believed. So there are types in this. Congenital, which is very rare. People believe that it's very, very rare congenital absence of this lactase. So there is the broad classification as primary and secondary lactose intolerance. And this primary lactose intolerance is, I think, quite common in Africa and European countries. Lot of things to be studied in the people of those countries. Why the primary lactose intolerance happens? Lot of environmental influence is also there. So again, coming to secondary lactose intolerance, which is I think which is quite common today we see in many because it is secondary to infections which affects intestine, enteritis, allergic, immune dysfunctions, autoimmune diseases like celiac diseases, etc., or like inflammatory bowel diseases. Secondary to this, people develop lactose intolerance. I think it is reversible. It is reversible when we reverse the primary disease. When we address the primary disease, this is going to be solved. So this is coming to the technical aspects. Then there are a lot of other things to be decided, like the milk which is told as original milk which is told, like it has given it has lot of benefits which are explained in Ayurveda, Jeevanam, like it is told Rasayanam, etc. So many benefits are told, and it is also habituated to us since the birth we have been taking. But today's milk, whether does it qualify the qualities which are mentioned is questionable. Again, we are taking the milk of a dairy milk we are taking, and the cows are not made to move also, they are on the same place, and it is also not having adequate exercises. All these things matter actually. So again, metabolism in the cow is also questionable. So it is not moving here and there. Actually, the cow should be moving openly in the open space, and such milk should be consumed. That is not happening. We are made to. We are, all the cows are made to be there in one place, and it is an artificial method. And second one is pasteurized milk. Again, that milk, whether to call it as a milk, whether does it qualify the qualities of milk? Again, it's questionable. So that is why we cannot say that it is purely because of lactose intolerance. So many a times by taking milk itself, our digestion capacity will undergo. It immediately it undergoes like it is disturbed. So all these things also to be taken into consideration. Regarding lactose intolerance, it is actually a false statement that we are moving into a lactose intolerance, etc. If the digestion capacity is clear, there are no primary diseases, definitely there people don't suffer from any of. Many people are taking, and they are, it depends on that particular person's digestion capacity and metabolic capacity also. When the people are suffering from diseases, definitely the milk is contraindicated in many of the diseases. Even it is a part of SNS, we ask them to avoid in many metabolic diseases, hormonal imbalances, etc. In infections, in Ayurveda, it is very clearly told, Amabhibhuta Kostasya Kshiram Visham Aheriva. It is equal to a snake poison if it is taken in the infective stage or inflammatory stage. So it's better. So such indications and contraindications are to be understood before coming into conclusion. So the debate of lactose intolerance, generalizing statement is very wrong. We cannot generalize that statement, but there are contraindications and indications which is explained in the science. So that has to be understood properly. And we also should understand the source of the milk, today's source of the milk. That's also questionable. So that also to be taken into consideration.
Um, so, I mean, regarding the alternatives that are there, so these alternatives, I mean, now we know that it may not really be needed, these alternatives, but
Actually, these alternatives are also they do not qualify the thing. The peanut should not be taken. Vidahi ahara again. It is many people they are developing so many kinds of issues, taking all those things. So again, this is not at all indicated. So these alternatives are creating new issues. So um, I'm on. This is not the scientific guidelines which are explained in Ayurveda. So all the alternatives which are there, uh, one or the other way, they are unscientific.
uh, okay. So next we'll look at this is again another like favorite. This I think you talked about this a little. This is to do with the fermented food. So
Yeah, yeah.
there is a lot of mention about lactobacillus and that it is very beneficial for gut and gut bacteria. There are very famous channels which promote this, and there are famous doctors as well. A lot of them who promote this. So how good are they really, like, so for the gut and the gut bacteria, and even in like a lot of even if you have had an operation or something, like anywhere you go, idli is still very much given, like idli is still considered okay, one of the safest things to give. So how good are these fermented foods, and um is it as good as they're being talked about, fermented foods in for the gut and the gut bacteria mainly, like
Yeah,
for the.
there is a traditional practice. I think many parts down south they are practicing it. I have seen people the leftover food, the leftover rice is made to get fermented, and next day they mix it with the curd and they take it and they claim that it is very good for the gut and etc. I think many actors are also batting for it, and I've seen this thing. It's a traditional practice, been
Yeah.
practice thing, and they claim it is good for gut. Uh, Actually, it is Ayurveda is not a tradition, and these traditional practices cannot be said as Ayurveda. It should not be said as Ayurveda. But there are very clear scientific guidelines. I have already told the previous day food there are contraindications. Pariyushita aharam. Fermented food particles, in particular, they are sour taste dominant. Again, I have already told it should never be Katwamlam, Kashaya, Lavanotkatam, Ahara should never be taken. It should not, our food should not be dominant of these things. One thing, it's very clearly. Second thing, why it is not indicated is the functional entity which is responsible for the immune status, which is called as Vyadhikshamatva in Ayurveda. The functional entity which is responsible for this is Ojas, which we say it as ojas. This functional entity, the properties of this functional entity is the fermented food is against to the properties of the functional entity. So when we practice fermented food articles, it is actually affecting the functional entity which is responsible for the Vedic Shamatva or the immune status. So it is just like consuming the alcohol. Why the person who is taking alcohol is ending up in so many issues and liver issues and hepatitis and all those things. So because his cells are, by taking consuming it daily, cells are also made up of alcohol only, which is not desired. So our immune strength, it is against to the immune strength, the functional entity which is responsible for the immune strength or Vedic Shamatva. So fermented food articles which are so predominant, they are highly contraindicated to be taken on daily basis and also to be part of the main diet. There is one more point that is to be taken into consideration. Sometimes we may not show symptoms by taking all these things because of formidable the resistance that our immune system shows. Sometimes our immune system may be susceptible. It may be habituated to these food articles and it may be silent because of the resistance that our immune system happens, or it may develop susceptible tissues. So when an opportunity comes, it can result in a disease. Or sometimes the effect may be of less potent and some highly potent cause is there, then it can develop in diseases. So we cannot say that by taking this fermented article person can immediately result in disease. No, it's not like that. Various the strength of immune system, the strength of a person, all those things are also to be understood. But definitely it should never be a part of the main diet because our cells can become susceptible to develop a disease. Definitely our cells can become susceptible to develop a disease. Also, it can become weak. It is against the functional entity which is responsible for the immune system. So, our immune system can be susceptible to develop a disease, and also our immune strength can go down. So, by definitely fermented, which is predominant of sour taste, never to be taken as a part of a daily diet. So, it's a very clear cut no from the perspective of Ayurveda. It can also result in toxic metabolites. It can produce immediately, it can develop a disease in like diseases like immune dysfunctions, autoimmune diseases, etc. can be resulted because of this. Sometimes the progression may be slow because of the resistance, and one or the other day he may develop or he may become susceptible to various diseases. So this is the answer from the side of from the perspective of Ayurveda. It is good for the gut, etc. These are all based on the researchers. There are so many claims that it is good for gut bacteria and all those things. But these are all many people who claim it as Ayurveda. Also, it is wrong only because these are only the traditional practices. So it is not a thing which is told in Ayurveda. So Ayurveda very clearly says no to fermented articles.
Okay. So as you said, that traditional thing of the leftover rice, like, and then keep it in the water, and next day morning have it, that is very common, and this
Yes,
is
it is a
new for
traditional practice.
us as well.
I've
Like,
been following. People have been following it. I know people who are suffering from grave diseases who said that it's a who claim that it is good for themselves, but they are suffering from so many issues, etc. But these traditional practices cannot become an Ayurveda practice. So Ayurveda has very clear no to this. So we have a scientific guidelines. So many things are to be taken into consideration. But that's what maybe person who is taking once or twice, or he may be taking it and still not developing in a disease. There, the individual has to be studied because various factors matter there, immune strength, his own strength, etc. But it can definitely he may be susceptible to many diseases, or sometimes he can immediately develop toxic metabolites and he can develop other diseases, immune dysfunctions, etc. Or sometimes he may develop it later, but definitely it cannot be taken as a daily diet. It should never be taken.
Okay. Um, okay. So, so see, so the thing with this is, but doesn't the body get adjusted to these? Like, see, there are people who are consuming it for maybe decades.
That's
Like,
what I told you. That's what I told you. Sometimes the body gets habituated to these things.
yeah,
This habituation may be in the wrong side. This habituation is not natural habituation, that is which is good for the tissues. Still, when you take it in a low quantity or when you take it daily, body gets habituated to this. But sometimes it becomes a wrong tissue. It is called Vishamadhatu in Ayurveda. So the tissue itself becomes just like person who takes alcohol daily consumes alcohol. So instead of the food it is taking alcohol, is predominantly taking alcohol in large quantity, is cells slowly become, it is made of alcohol only. So similarly, where our functional entities of the tissues or our body should be made of the different things, different functional properties, it is slowly being replaced by this sour predominant taste because of fermented food articles. So the nature of the tissue changes. It is not, it's not the ideal intended habituation, it is the wrong habituation. So in there many scenarios develop. One thing is person can immediately develop a disease, toxic metabolites can be formed and immediately can land up in any diseases, or sometimes he may not develop immediately. So there will be wrong habituations being continued. Because of less potency he may develop in the future, when the much more potency of fermented food articles or any such opportunity happens, he can develop later. Or sometimes his immune status will be very weak, he will be carrying this vishama dhatu itself. So one or the other way the body system is affected definitely, but you cannot say that he can immediately develop a disease. He may develop in the future, or sometimes he may not develop also because of the resistance he is showing because of some other factors. He may be having good natural innate strength, etc. But it cannot be argued that because of that fermented food articles can be included in the diet. It is not like that. The natural, ideal, intended habituation is not fermented food articles.
okay. Um, okay. So, again, a follow-up question. So, as you said, the body may not really show signs for months, years, right?
Yes.
So, how will someone know that? Okay, before they have gone overboard, before they have actually contracted a disease, uh, how is there some, I mean, like, is there some way to know that, okay, I'm on the wrong path? Because, say, for example, I can take myself as an example here. So I abused my body in my college days, for example. Like, so as a college student, I abused my body. The minute I actually graduated, till I was abusing for 4 years or so, I didn't have any notable signs or symptoms. But the minute I graduated and started working, it started showing up in my gut and everything. So, but it came to the stage where I had gone much overboard. So, is there something that can tell people, like, okay, you are on the wrong path, or is there some signs that the body tells you, or something that you should listen to? Like,
That's what I actually the prodromal symptoms, and it is disease specific. So you want to understand that particular disease. So every disease will have prodromal symptoms, or before the developing of the actual disease, there will be some signs and symptoms prior to that. But the homeostasis when it is affected, the homeostasis when it is affected, there will be some silent features, silent symptoms and signs. That's what I explained. Arogya lingas. So one or the other arogya lingas will be affected since the beginning itself. And specifying particular disease, specific signs and symptom for that particular disease is very difficult to explain, and it is very difficult to convey to the a layman. It's very difficult. Sometimes you may not develop any symptom also because of the resistance that your immune system that it can bear for some time, still bears, and when it is not in a position to bear or much more potent cause is available, then it can suddenly manifest in a disease. So to form a disease there are different combinations also. It is not just the pathological factors, so there are different factors which are necessary for the formation of disease. So since the first day of the abusing, you cannot say that I'm going to tell a disease. So I told you it's a very complex. There are so many things which determines the bala of a person. So there are so many things which where bala is dependent upon the. So that is again person specific, one person to one person to one person. One person may develop a disease in 2 years, one person can develop immediately, one person can develop a disease after 4 years or 5 years. So when we are practicing certain things, we must keep all these things, scientific guidelines in mind. That's very important. So we cannot say, though, depending on the strength of a person, that the formidable the resistance that formidable resistance that immune system shows. So depends on that also. Sometimes the potency may be very low. Because of that, the disease may not be manifested. That's all the answer for this point which you have told. But if he is having any disruption in the internal environment or the arogya lingas which I explained, one or the other, then he some other symptoms will be shown. So he may be having something, or he may be having some, he may not be having proper sleep, he may not be having proper evacuation of the bowel and micturition. So any of these things will be there. If any of these things are affected, we must understand that the body's homeostasis or the internal environment is affected. That is to be understood.
Okay. So we'll just look at couple of habits. I think we're past the 1 hour, but is it okay if we continue for some time? Like,
Yes, yes, yes. We can continue.
yeah. Um, so just a couple of habits that have come about. So one is this intermittent fasting. So you fast for 14 hours in a day. So you have your dinner at 5 or 6 in the evening, and then your next meal should be at least 10 in the morning, next day morning. So there are two things in this. One is early dinner or no dinner at all. So there are some people who have their last meal in the afternoon and no dinner at all. And second thing is they don't have breakfast at all. So that because they have it at 10 or 11. Both of these, it's all related. All this it's related to this intermittent fasting of 14, 15 hours a day. Uh, is this right? Like, so there are a lot of people following this. Like, so for weight loss is one
So
for,
definitely not right.
yeah.
Definitely not right. It cannot be generalized. So sometime some person may be following this intermittent fasting, he may not be affected, but it cannot be said for other person also. This fasting without understanding the body status is dangerous. So we cannot that blanket order of fasting, intermittent fasting for all cannot be dictated in that way. It can be dangerous also. Many a time person can lose his strength drastically. He may lose his strength. So it is not like that. Like upavasa to be practiced. Again, upavasa is a treatment also. In very, it is to be judiciously practiced in certain individuals. There is a clear-cut indication and contraindication also. So contraindication is also there. I have seen people who fast and suddenly end up in hypotension and immediately develop complications. They start something very new and to even to lose. When people who are obese also, when they start, I have seen people immediately undergo like developing hypotension and coming to a doctor. So the blanket order of intermittent fasting, you cannot say that intermittent fasting is all time good. It is not like that. So it cannot be done. Sometimes people may not be affected because they may be having a very good strength. It may be not be affected, but you cannot say that all are not going to be affected. Definitely, there are contraindications to this also. It cannot be blindly indicated to anyone. Upavasa is there as a treatment. It is a part of treatment in Ayurveda, but it should be judiciously practiced in particular pathological status. That can be agreed and it can be designed or that can be dictated by a person who is qualified only. Now it is a trend where I know that this point that people are many people are still crying that after fasting also they are not they are not gaining any benefit out of it. Some people they claim that they are gaining. Again, that depends on person to person. So, but there is no such thing that upavasa is all time good or upavasa is all time bad. We cannot say both of the statements are wrong. It is judiciously to be indicated in person which when it is needed. Sometimes the lagu asana is also needed. Sometimes very less diet. I have told you the importance of lagu ahara. Sometimes that may be practiced, and having very late food very late is also bad. Having at least the gap of 3 hours should be maintained before going to sleep and the food. That's a healthy practice that we have. One yama should be maintained. That 3 hours of gap should be maintained. That's a healthy practice. Having very late food at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and immediately after food they are going for sleep. That is also wrong. That is a wrong practice that is being practiced. But apart from that, you cannot say that the intermittent fasting is the solution for all metabolic issues, etc. No, we cannot say that.
And regarding breakfast, like, so is it like, so there are people who skip breakfast, there are people who say breakfast is the king of meals. Like, so again, is there something like that, or again, there's no such
Again, no hard and fast. One
hard.
person who wakes up after passing the bowel and all those things, practicing exercises, he should listen to his hunger and the things which I told, Annakala Lakshanas. If Annakala Lakshana is observed, he can have food. We cannot fix the timing again. Depends on person's metabolic and digestive power. Then phenotype, this prakriti also, the constitution of that person also matters in a normal scenario. So again, these there are no such hard and fast rules. Again, seeing the time and taking food is also wrong, very wrong. We shouldn't be sticking to that particular breakfast to be taken at certain such time before 9 o'clock. That is also wrong. So you should be observant and you should be observing to these the signs which are told. So when he observes that, he can have food after proper exercises in the morning in an empty stomach. That can be practiced. But without observing it, having food is also a crime. It can immediately affect his status, healthy status.
Um, okay. So, from the previous talk, you did mention about Ushna and Sheetha, like, and you
Yeah.
mentioned that the foods which are cooling and heat generating to the body. You mentioned that people have a very crude idea about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, for example, like even isn't coconut water really cooling? Like, so it's the we also have. I mean, all of us have. I think the same crude idea about that. So, just
Yeah,
if
it
you
is cooling.
can explain that a bit more, like.
Yeah, it is cooling. It is Sheetha in nature. That is Snigdham, Rishyam, Swadu, Sheetam. It is Sheetam only, Narikelodakam. Um, this crude idea, why I told, because people think this curd rice is very coolant to the body. It is wrong. It is Ushnavirya, like hot in potency. Many such things are there. Again, that I told you the previous day food that where people think it's very coolant and it is not. It is actually fermented and vidahi ahara. It is hot in potency. Again, it is wrong. So such crude I was referring to. Narikelodaka or this coconut water is definitely coolant. Again, it is equivalent to amodakam, which I told, unboiled water, then it can immediately change the internal environment and make the person land up in disease if it is taken in the wrong status. Definitely, he can immediately can develop in a disease if it is taken in a wrong status. This it is cold in potency, so it has that power. Immediately can change the environment and internal environment and can make him land up in disease. So Yeah, when your question, like it is coolant only, but how we can judge whether it is Ushna or
Needed for.
Sheetha? Yeah, it is explained in Ayurveda for each food articles as much as possible. It is explained in Ayurveda for each food articles. So many vikalpas are told. Various food articles it is mentioned. This is cool and this is and some general idea guidelines are also mentioned. For example, millets I was talking about. So millets, there are some general trinadhanya. There are some general characteristics are told. Based on that, we contraindicate and we indicate. So we may not be having all the millets which are available. We may not be knowing the name of all those things which is in the Sanskrit which are mentioned. But general ideas are mentioned. Similarly, some general guidelines are mentioned. By seeing that also we can understand, and some specific properties are mentioned for all those things. For this coconut water also it is mentioned. So it is cold in potency. For the answer for your question is yes, but again, indications and contraindications are there that we have to keep it in mind.
Okay, there was one question from one participant about the type of oil to be used. So there are again sunflower, rice bran, and traditional ones like our coconut, groundnut, sesame, gingerly oil. So is there some advice on the type of oil to be used, or
In a general scenario, it is the habituation. For example, you go to certain parts of north, the mustard oil is used.
mustard
They
oil
are
is used?
habituated. They are habituated to use. I was there and I tried to use it, and it created massive like fluctuation in the health, and I stopped using it. So it depends basically on habituation, where you are living and what kind of environment that you are brought up and etc. So habituation plays a major role. You cannot practice the same thing and go to some other place and practice the same. That can also can cause issues. Generally, this cow ghee is good. In Ayurveda, certain things are told like Nitya Sevaniya Dravyas, or it is called Sharira Satmya. So I would like to throw some light on this. And where cow ghee is told as it is Sharira Satmya also, Nitya Sevaniya Dravya also. It is the best one if you, that I have already told, intended natural habituation. That
Okay.
is what Sharira Satmya is, which is conducive to your tissues and your immune status and your self, human beings, irrespective of the conditions. Like in the normal scenario, these are good, like wheat, red rice, and kshira, grita, that is cow ghee, cow milk, and jangala mamsa, the meat of a dry land animals, etc. They are actually good for our, they are basically naturally, it can be habituated to, because it does not go against the properties of our tissues. So in that way, if you look, cow ghee is the best one. Cow ghee is the best one for natural habituation. It has lot of benefits. And if you come to south, down south, you have coconut oil which are being used, and you go to some other place, gingerly oil is used. So it depends. But today's scenario, like refined oil, definitely we have to avoid, because the process itself is not ideal. And other rice bran oil, so many other oils are today coming up, but it's better to avoid all those things. I have a very clarity in this statement, so better to avoid all those things. But if you ask me, so the best thing is cow ghee, which is intended natural habituation. It is good. And depend, you can also keep the habituation in mind and can go. Like it is just like saying many people are habituated to jowar. In Karnataka, if you see, different habituation is there. Ragi, many people are
Ragi.
taking by thing. Yeah, many places they are taking ragi by thing, and it doesn't create anything. If they are, as long as they are healthy, it can be taken, it can be consumed, which is not interfering in their like, it is not, they are not developing any diseases or something. So if Vadisatmya is required, we can change, but otherwise, as long as they are in the proper in the unaltered internal environment, they can continue to take it. So because it's jowar, ragi, etc. Just like this, oil, the people habituation also to be taken into consideration.
Okay. Okay, I think we have just a couple of more questions. So one is like roti or chapati. So there are so even in our SNS diet, or I mean like proper Pathya diet, we from SBEBA, we mentioned that roti or chapati can be taken, and so when we talk about it, but there are mentions about the gluten in roti or chapati. So is it can it be included in Pathya diet, and is gluten really an issue?
No, 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 no. Gluten, that's again, I told you this. There are two types of issues. There are three types of issues which are related with. One is gluten allergy is there. Second one is this gluten sensitivity. Second, celiac disease, autoimmune disease. Almost all the three are immune dysfunctions only. So it is not because of the gluten which is present in the wheat or the barley or those cereals. It is not the gluten which is the culprit. It is the immune dysfunction which is culprit. Autoimmune disease, celiac disease is an autoimmune disease. Even they say non-celiac gluten sensitivity. There is one more class of disease. That is also basically some antibodies are present, some infiltration of lymphocytes, etc. Inflammatory activities are there in that also. If you see the pathology, so basically they are having the certain pathology, and by treating that, the issue will be solved. It is not by stopping the if the SNS requires chapatis to be stopped or rotis to be stopped, we can stop, because rotis and chapatis are considerably the process. They are heavier for digestion compared to the rice gruel or anything. So if the digestion is good and there is no contraindication for the chapatis or rotis, it can be taken. It should not be stopped based on its presence of because of the presence of gluten or something. So the indication and contraindication is purely based on the digestion, or whether it is required in first stage, or it can be taken in first stage or not taken in the first stage. So the contraindication indication is based on this, not based on the gluten. So this gluten sensitivity is wrongly understood. People say when they develop bloating and all those things, they think it is because of gluten which is present in these things. It is not like that. They have a clear-cut pathologies. Most often, it is autoimmune pathology.
Okay, so I think we have the last question, which I think when I discuss this talk with a lot of people, and this is the first thing that a lot of people like came back to me with. So, so one of the questions below is also that. So Ayurveda, it was written when like maybe 3,000, 4,000, like much longer. The contemporary today's food and the food combinations themselves, like how each items have been combined. So will can Ayurveda still address all these modern day combinations, modern day food? So this I think a lot of people have asked me as well, like, so just
I
to
have answered this in my, I have answered this in the preface of my book, which is written scientific. This is that was the reason why we felt that we need a book. We need to talk because modern day diseases are different. Modern day food combinations are different, but the many of the things which are available, the naturally available things are the same, which are explained in Ayurveda. It is very clearly documented. So, and functional properties they don't change, which are explained in Ayurveda. I've already told it is simple as simple that properties we analyze in the food articles and we assume that the same thing is going to become a bodily component and it is to be digested. That's very important. Sometimes we may require the experience. So, for example, uh, the oats. So it's I have searched whether oats are not written. Then I did not get what kind of things. But after eating oats, the effects I could feel and I could understand. It's a kind of wisdom bee, and it also follows the same like class of millets, etc. So we can understand the effects now by experiencing. So certain food, all the food articles we may not come into conclusion. We cannot fit like many things which are not documented. But by looking at the effects, we can understand. So certain experiences are also important because all these things are not documented. But we cannot say that Ayurveda is not applicable. No? It is not at all because the same the Panchama Bhuta based, the same Tridosha based Ayurveda. It is applicable today. It was applicable in the past, and it will be applicable in the future. May the forms may change, different forms may change, but it will never. The basic concepts will not change.
Mm.
The basic wind may not change, the water will not change, the earthy particles will not change. So Ayurveda will not also change. It will never change. So even you may have a complex food combinations. We can analyze it properly. I have told you. The bread we can analyze and we can say prices. So we can easily say that it cannot be taken and why it is not to be taken. Similarly, many things which were not written, that was the reason why we have written the contemporized. So many things we have explained that these are the things which are not to be taken. For example, alkaline water, I have told you why it is not to be taken, which if you see, we have to understand and we have to apply it. In today's things are to be analyzed and it is to be applied. So we require some research and we need to work on it to interpret our basic concepts in terms of today's things. So it requires some research and etc. But we cannot say that it is applicable. It is applicable. That's why we are getting results. We are getting results because of that reasons. So, so this is the answer for that question. Even in the future, some other complex things may come. So we need to analyze, we need to research. That was the reason why SBBA is unique. So Madam and Sir has deciphered so many treatment guidelines for modern day diseases, which are not directly explained. Modern day diseases. So how to understand in terms of our in our basic concepts. So that is why it is unique. So such research things updation is required today. That has been done by the SBEBA, and even in comes to diet also. This contemporized, that's what it is written. Why it is written contemporized? Because there is a need in today's thing. Uh, so today's combinations, etc., how they are unscientific and how it should not be taken, etc. So we need explanations and we need understanding. Sometimes we need self experiences also. When we see, sometimes we see in patients also the effect, etc.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I think we'll end here. But before we do that, you mentioned about your book, doctor. So, is
Yeah.
it can any of us pick it up and read it, or it's meant for practitioners? Like, so is it a book for layman? Like, so can we understand it, or
There are
it's
two parts for it. People who are undergoing SBBA treatment can definitely it will be helpful. Second one, it is also a direct. It can be a guideline for SBBA practitioners also. Many patients also by layman can also read and understand. It is in a simple usage language. They can understand about SBBA. They can understand about various things. Common this wrong practices that are prevailing are also mentioned. It will be useful for patients, laymen, as well as scientific practitioners.
okay?
Yes.
Uh, okay. I think that is what we had for this meeting. So I think most of the other questions are also. There's one question which is, can you explain why Amla Ras is Viruddha in Dugdha Sevan? Also, its observed pH of stomach is acidic. So,
I did not get the question.
there's one question which is, can you explain why Amla Ras is Viruddha in Dugdha Sevan? Also, its observed pH of stomach is acidic.
So it is not because of pH of stomach we are deciding the food. Like Amla and Dugdha are Viruddha because they are both are incompatible. So it can immediately result in the status of milk can change into curd by mixing it with Amla. So it is Viruddha itself, incompatible. Certain things are told they are not to be combined together. So in that way, it is incompatible and should not be mixed together. And it is not based on pH of a stomach or something like that.
Okay, other I think important question for all of us South Indians. What is the ideal morning drink, sir, for instead of tea or coffee? Coffee predominantly for all of us. So,
It's a very difficult question to be understood. Again, if you are asking me for the habituation, I'm not the person because, like, if you are fine with you are consuming tea or coffee, you are fine with you are not developing anything, and you are susceptible to develop after drinking all those things, better to stop. And you consult your nearby SBEBA practitioner, and then understand your body and understand your health status. That's the best way to decide. The blanket order of anything may be wrong. In a public platform, when I say that you can consume this and this, it is wrong. It cannot be done. So some people may start doing it in some other way. It's just not wrong. We cannot say that. So again, depends on understanding one's health condition. As long as you don't develop, anything may not be wrong. Again, I told you, sometimes you may be becoming susceptible, so you need to stop. Or if it is not creating any issues, it can be continued as long as it is not disturbing the internal environment. Again, blanket order of indication and contraindications, we must be very careful in talking. And certain things which are definitely to be indicated and contraindicated, we can talk about.
So, yeah, so I think that's it. We had doctor. So thanks a lot. I think this will help quite a lot of people. And thanks a lot for this talk, Doc.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. I enjoyed. I don't know whether I have reached the public as much as possible. I have tried my level best to keep it very simple. I want to reach more and more people, because many people are unaware of many of the unscientific practices that are happening. Because today, if you open all YouTubes, and so many guidelines, so many unscientific guidelines, somebody comes and say the sprouts are good, somebody says that, people are confused. Actually, people are very much confused, and they do not actually, they are not in the safe guidelines. Many guidelines are very much unscientific. I don't know how people believe and practice. When myself, if I myself I practice any one of these things, I may end up in. It's like, I sometimes I feel, how can they openly, confidently, they can preach all these nonsenses openly. I sometimes I get wondered, but like, we need so much of like, we need such platforms to come up and reach people, public, so that we can actually we can be like more confident in making people at least reach, so that we can reach people and make them understand. So it will be very useful for them. Definitely there are no like negatives. Even they stop following all these scientific guidelines, they'll be in a very safe pathway. So that's what matters. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you so much. It was very good talking to you. And also, viewers, I would like to thank. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes.